My wife, Maggie, and I were sitting in the living room of our friends Damon and Kelly's house. It was our usual monthly get-together with our group of friends. 4 couples, no kids, just some time to relax. The group had been the same for years. The wives had been best friends since elementary school, and us husbands all ended up working together at the same company after college. It took a while for everyone to marry and start families. Maggie and I were the first to tie the knot and the second couple to have kids. Damon and Kelly were ahead of us, with 2 5-year-old twins, Mark and Jill, and a 3-year-old. We had 2 kids, a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and Steve and Robin had one, a 4-year-old girl. Oddly enough, all the kids were girls except for our son, Cody. Nothing about our lives was particularly out of the ordinary. Damon owned a bar called Club Nights, I managed a grocery store chain, and Steve worked in insurance. The wives were typical suburban moms, attractive, fit, and friendly. But Jill, Damon and Kelly's daughter, had always stood out. She was especially beautiful and a little wild, or so I'd heard from Maggie. As the night went on, we were all getting pretty buzzed. The guys were close, not as tight-knit as the women, but we spent time together regularly. Usually it was on the golf course or at the darts league at Damon's bar. While we were chatting about our kids' latest activities, Jill suddenly shifted the conversation. "I love being a mom, but I miss dancing," she said. The other ladies agreed, reminiscing about their college days. Maggie chimed in, "Why don't we go out dancing tomorrow night? Just the girls. Leave the men to handle the kids, and we can shake off the cobwebs." Damon laughed. "Why can't we come with you? Who are you planning to dance with?" Kelly replied, "Whoever wants to join. We'll have fun without the husbands and kids for once." I frowned, glancing at Maggie. "Isn't the point of these monthly get-togethers to get a break from the kids? Now you want a break from me, too? Why do you need a night away from me?" Maggie snapped back, "Why do you always act like this? Are you spying on us now?" The conversation took a sharp turn, and tension filled the room. It became clear that the idea had been discussed before the party, and we were caught off guard. I felt angry, betrayed, and unsure about their motives for planning a night out. I tried to calm things down, suggesting, "Let's just drop it. This is getting out of hand over something silly." Damon, sensing the tension, said, "Okay, let's meet tomorrow at 6:30 at my place." "Boys, it's not over yet." I agreed, but as Maggie stormed out with Kelly, I followed, feeling frustrated. "Come on, Maggie. Let's go." She didn't respond, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. I could feel the anger radiating off her. The entire ride home was silent, like she was a child throwing a tantrum. I was angry too. This felt like a setup. They had planned it all, even choosing the exact night. We trusted our wives, but it made me question why they needed a night away from us. We weren't living boring lives. We had plenty of adult nights out, thanks to Maggie's parents who loved watching the kids. But did one of them want to cheat? Did they want to flirt with other men at Damon's bar? Why would they think we'd spy on them? What were they afraid of us seeing? When we got home, Maggie jumped out of the car before I could even stop. She'd already dropped the kids off at her mom's. I knew I was in for a long talk. As soon as the garage door closed, she let me have it. "Why are you acting like this? Like a jerk? What's your problem with me going out with my friends? Do you think I belong to you? Do you think I'm doing this to have a night to myself?" Maggie's voice was sharp, her frustration clear. I sighed, trying to remain calm. "Tell me, why is it so important to go out without your husbands? Why can't you dance and have fun with us like you said, without risking being hit on? Or worse, we've heard the stories from Damon about pills, girls being kidnapped, all the warnings he gets from other bar owners and even the police. Can't you understand we're just worried about you? You don't have to worry about anything. All we want is to blow off some steam too. Why not do it at Damon's bar, where X can keep an eye on you? He's 6 feet 5 inches, 300 pounds, a total wall. No one's going to mess with you with him there. We'd feel better about it. Maggie seemed to soften for a moment. I don't want to argue, she said, her voice quieter now. We have the whole house to ourselves. How about we make good use of it? We both shed our outerwear and made our way upstairs. By the time we reached the bedroom, she was in her underwear, and I was already undressed. We made love, and after lying there for a while, I kissed her lightly. How about a shower? I asked. She smiled, shaking her head. I never want to leave this place. I fell asleep quickly, the tension of the argument still lingering in the back of my mind. When the alarm rang, I got up and walked slowly to the shower. As the hot water hit me, I kissed her cheek while she slept, then headed downstairs to make coffee. The argument from last night was still on my mind, and I knew it would come up again, likely during 18 holes and a case of beer with the guys. I grabbed a case of beer from the garage fridge, threw my clubs in the back of the SUV, and headed out to the golf course. When I arrived, the other guys were already waiting, their carts ready. Hey Paul, we're all set for the round. Mark greeted me. And you owe me $20 from last week's skins game. You remember, I won the last 4 holes. I pulled out a $100 bill and handed it to him. Hold on to this. Let's see how much you lose to me today. Damon laughed as I loaded my bag into the cart. Grab some beers, guys. They should stay cool in your bags. Damn it, Paul. $6,000 won't make it around the bend. Steve joked, handing me a couple of cigars. The beer girl might get some of our money today. I never understood his need to smoke good cigars on the course. The cigars were probably $8 each, which wasn't crazy, but they seemed like a waste, especially when they'd get forgotten or, once, even hit by a golf ball. After a costly miss on a putt, I dropped my putter, almost hitting Mark in the process. It was ridiculous when you thought about it, paying over $100 for golf, cigars, and open beer bottles. But we did it anyway. As I drove toward the first tee with Mark, he started talking about the party, his concern evident. Dude, I'm worried about the girls going out tonight without us. It's not like them. And honestly, Jill's been talking a lot about her old fun days lately. I raised an eyebrow. She was on the phone last week talking about some of the fun she had. She didn't even know I was home, so she didn't hide it. She mentioned missing that lifestyle, which was news to me. Damn, Mark muttered. Now she wants to drag our wives into it. I shook my head. I really thought Jill was over all that stuff. I never thought I'd have to worry about her being faithful, especially with little Sammy around. This sucks. Mark nodded, his expression somber. It doesn't make sense to me either. She has everything. A new SUV, the latest home accessories, money in the bank, even a whole room dedicated to her scrapbooking needs. They have regular date nights, and we babysit Sammy whenever they need it. She should be happy. But maybe this isn't the life she wanted. Maybe she never wanted to be a mother at all. Could the party girl she used to be still be the real her? I didn't know how to respond. I had heard of postpartum depression, but it didn't seem to fit Maggie's situation. She'd never mentioned it. But now I had to wonder, was I missing something? I couldn't stop thinking about what Maggie might be up to. Was she looking for something else? Was I not enough for her? Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just an innocent girl's night out. But did they have the right to do this? We stopped at the turn before the 10th hole and grabbed some hot dogs. As we ate, Damon spoke up. Guys, you know something's going on with our wives, right? We all nodded in agreement. Their defensiveness the night before didn't sit well with me. They were worried about us finding out, and refusing to go to Damon's bar didn't make sense. Completely ruined my mood. I agree, I said. I talked to Maggie about it. She said they'd consider going to your bar as a compromise, but I really don't believe they'll just go there. They've got something else planned. We just need to find out what it is. Damon's expression darkened. How about I ask Rick to follow them if they don't go to my bar? Rick was the new bouncer at Damon's bar. Someone none of the wives knew yet. Imposing someone like Rick should be fine, Damon added. I like this idea. Will he intervene if things get out of hand? I asked. Don't worry, Damon replied. I pay him to do whatever we need him to do. Okay, let's finish up here, then we'll come up with a plan, Steve said, lighting up another cigar. We wrapped up our round of golf and headed over to Damon's bar, where we talked to Rick about our plan. This is what we want, Damon explained. Follow our wives wherever they go. Stay in the background and watch them. If things start getting out of control, take a video with your phone and text it to me. If any of them try to leave with another guy, stop them. Rick raised an eyebrow. How do you want me to stop them? Should I physically restrain them? No, Damon said. Just follow them, note their actions. If it gets to that point, ask the lady if her husband would approve of what she's doing. Then show her that you've recorded her leaving with someone else and sent it to us. That should stop her. If the guy starts causing trouble? I asked. Well, that's his fault, Rick said with a grin. I'll handle it, no worries. Damon smiled, then added, my wife's friend Cara cheated on her husband and got pregnant. Stupid move. Rich had a great boyfriend, and she dumped him at a party just because she was lonely. I hate scammers. Guys, why don't you come over to my place tonight with the kids? They can have a sleepover. If anything happens at the club, we'll have a couple of us ready to pick them up without worrying about the kids, Damon suggested. Great idea, I said. We'll touch base after the wives tell us their plans. When I got home, Maggie grabbed her keys and rushed past me. I'm going to the store. I'll be back soon, she said. Could you pick up some shaving cream? I asked. She stopped, glancing back at me. I'm not going to the store. I'm going to the mall with the girls to buy a dress for tonight. Why do you need a new dress for tonight? Who are you trying to impress? I shot back, frustration creeping in. Don't be a fifth wheel, she retorted. I just want to look good. Like a woman, not like a mother. I slammed the door, fuming. You are a mother, and you're also a wife. Don't forget that. She didn't respond. I stormed upstairs to check on the kids, who were napping. After my shower, I went back downstairs. The kids were sitting in front of the TV, watching Frozen 2 for the millionth time. I smiled at them, my heart swelling with love. It would devastate me if Maggie wanted to cheat. Why would she risk everything we had? We had so many talks about our dreams for the future. We had a good family, a happy life. I thought back to my previous relationship, how my ex had cheated on me. It took me months to get over that heartbreak, and it was Maggie who helped me pull out of my depression. She made me believe in love again. I wouldn't let her do the same thing to me. I was playing Candyland with the kids when Maggie came through the door. It was around our usual dinner time, but since we knew Steve was getting pizza, we decided to grab a quick bite. Maggie brushed past me without saying a word and went straight up to our bedroom. She was clearly avoiding me, avoiding the conversation about her night out. It didn't take her 4 hours to buy clothes, but she came home looking like she'd been shopping all day. Cody ran up the stairs, calling, Mommy, come play with us. She didn't respond, either not hearing him or ignoring him altogether. I was starting to fear it was the latter. Go call her, buddy, I said to Cody. He ran upstairs, and I could hear their conversation, though I didn't understand everything. What I did hear made my stomach turn. Maggie was talking on the phone, and when she closed the bedroom door, I could still make out her side of the conversation. I listened closely to what Maggie was saying. "There's no way in hell we can relax at Damon's," she said. "I suggest we tell them we're going there just to avoid a fight, and then we can go to a real party afterward. They've got a huge hall and all kinds of dance music." After that, she said goodbye and went to take a shower. I went into Cody's room and found him crying. "What happened, baby?" I asked. "Mom told me to stop pestering her and to leave her alone," he sobbed. I hugged him tightly. "Don't worry, son. We'll go to Uncle Steve's and have a sleepover with all your buddies. Will Heather be there too?" I asked, trying to cheer him up. "Yes, and your sister too," I added. "Now cheer up. Let's finish our game." He smiled and ran downstairs, like nothing had happened. Thank God kids have short memories. I quickly messaged the guys in our group chat and told them what I overheard. Steve replied, saying he had heard the same part of the conversation when he was talking to Jill. I was cleaning up when Maggie came downstairs, wearing the shortest skirt and highest heels I'd ever seen her wear. "What's for dinner?" she asked, her tone casual. "You're leaving, aren't you?" I said, trying to keep my anger in check. "You didn't discuss any of your plans with me. You ran away from here and avoided me all day, and now you're dressed like a $20 prostitute." Her eyes flashed with anger. "You don't have to be a jerk about it. We're just going to dance." "Dancing in a skirt that barely covers your behind? And shoes you can't even walk in? You're wearing more makeup than Gene Simmons and you smell like a perfume store." I shot back. She snapped at me. "Don't talk about me like that in front of Cody. He's still crying because you didn't even try to calm him down." "What happened to you?" I continued. "What happened to the woman I married? The one who dreamed of becoming a mother? When did you turn into this?" Without saying anything, she slapped me. "You'll be lucky if I come home at all," she spat, and rushed out of the house without even kissing the kids goodbye. I stood there, feeling a heavy weight in my chest. Since they were at Damon's bar, I didn't have to worry about where they were going anymore. Rick was already on it. He had pictures of the women and was waiting in the parking lot for them to leave. At 9 o'clock, Rick sent Damon a picture to confirm that the women leaving were indeed our wives. The tension was building. While the kids were in the basement watching movies, Steve assigned his oldest niece to look after them. We sat in Steve's living room, nervously drinking beer and waiting for updates. Every time a message came through, we jumped. Rick texted, "They took 2 cars. 2 cars," Mark said. "So if one leaves, the other can still get home." I shook my head, our collective paranoia growing. 20 minutes later, Rick sent another update. "They're dancing. Nothing out of line yet. No guys around." We all breathed a momentary sigh of relief, but the stress was getting to us. We had moved from craft beer to stronger drinks, and I knew I needed to stop drinking. If something went wrong, someone had to be sober enough to drive. Rick's next message came soon after. "A group of cowboys, all wearing hats and no cattle, just bought them drinks. Lots of appreciative touches, but no lines crossed." By this point, Mark was ready to head out and intervene. "Wait, Mark," I said. "We expected something like this. Still not as bad as we feared. Let's wait a bit before jumping the gun." "You're right," he muttered. "Crap. I'm so nervous though." Steve chimed in. "Come on, eat some pizza and calm down. The beer's starting to hit us." We ate the cold pizza, our nerves building as Damon's phone rang again. "Rick, I'm sending pictures now. They're dancing dirtier now." We all sat frozen, waiting for the photos. When they appeared, they were worse than we expected. But there were no pictures of Robin, just Jill, Kelly, and Maggie. Damon asked Rick about Robin. "What about the other redhead?" Rick responded, She doesn't slow dance. She only does fast numbers and line dances. She doesn't drink much either. Her rhinestone cowboy has moved on to greener pastures. Steve sighed with relief. That's a load off my mind. Steve went downstairs to check on the kids while we stewed in the tension. Then Damon's phone rang again. Rick says a woman's arguing. Looks like Robin wants to leave, Damon said, sounding both relieved and worried. Steve nodded. Go get her. She clearly doesn't want to be there. Don't keep her waiting. A moment later, Steve walked out the door, heading to the club to get Robin. This is incredible, Damon muttered. They're going to leave their girlfriends behind just to stay out all night. At least we know what's going on, Mark said. If Rick hadn't been there, I'd be desperate right now, worried about her going back to her wild days. I threw my beer bottle across the room as Robin and Steve walked into the kitchen. I told them I didn't want any part of this, I said, feeling the anger boiling inside me. I can only imagine what they'll do, Robin said, looking worried. What do you mean? Mark asked. Jill went up for the night. Kelly and Maggie said they weren't going to do anything, but Jill encouraged them to join her for some weird party in a motel room. I slammed my fist on the table. I told them no, and they called me names. Can you believe it? They called me names because I don't want to be a woman of easy virtue. I stood up, ready to leave, but Robin stopped me. Paul, she said gently, all she's going to do is dance a little. I don't think Maggie is going to cheat on you. It doesn't look like it. Just then we heard the front door slam shut. Where's Mark? Damon asked. Damn, he was just here, I muttered. Damn, we better go get him, Steve said as we rushed out the door. Mark had pulled out of the driveway at full speed. Warn Rick, I said, my mind racing. Let him know trouble's coming. Keep Mark out of jail. Will do, Damon replied. We pulled into the club's parking lot and waited. Rick quickly texted us, saying he'd grabbed Mark when he burst into the bar. Mark was cooling off in his car, waiting for us. Rick was watching inside, reporting that nothing had happened yet. They were just sitting and drinking. We found Mark's car and he came out to meet us. I was ready to charge in, but Rick stopped me. I warned him that I was coming, I said, my hands trembling with anger. Yeah, we don't need to get you out of jail, Damon said, trying to keep things calm. Damon's phone rang again. Rick says the girls are leaving. Be aware, but stick to the plan. Stay in your cars. Okay, guys, get back in the car, Damon ordered. We saw the women's cars 2 rows ahead and got into Mark's Traverse, waiting. They walked out of the bar, laughing and hugging their cowboy wannabes. Rick was behind them, recording as planned. Jill and her guy got into one car. Kelly and her guy into another. Maggie and her man were trying to find their car for some privacy. As luck would have it, Maggie was walking toward our car when she didn't even notice us. I rolled down the window and shouted, "Hey!" She turned, looking in the wrong direction, her face filled with panic as she searched for me. I opened the door, and the others followed me. Maggie froze as I approached her. "What's going on here?" I asked, fury in my voice. "What the hell do you want?" She snapped, clearly agitated. Her man, Morin, stepped forward. "I want to beat the crap out of you for messing with my wife." "Hey," Maggie said, "I'm in the middle of a divorce. I don't get involved with married people. Too much trouble." She started to sob, leaning against the trunk of a nearby car, her head in her hands. "Looks like she's telling the truth," I muttered, stepping back. "She's in the middle of a divorce. You can take her." "No," Maggie cried, grabbing me as I turned to leave. She tried to spin me around, but she was so drunk she stumbled and fell to the ground. As she lay there, I saw she wasn't wearing any underwear. She raised her head and asked, "What are you doing?" I looked at her with disgust. "Every time you beg me to forgive you and take you back, I'm going to look at this moment and remember that you were about to sleep with this guy." Her man came up to us, furious. "Why are you being such a jerk? We didn't even do anything. Give me her underwear." I snapped. He pulled the underwear from his back pocket and handed them to me. I threw them at her and spat on the ground. "Goodbye," I said coldly. "Go home, change clothes, pack your stuff, and go to your parents' house. I don't want them to see you like this. If you're still here in the morning, I'll send them a video of what happened tonight." "No, Paul, please. I wasn't going to do anything. He was just going to take me home." I pointed to Rick, who had just punched one of the guy's friends. "Is that true?" I demanded. "No," Rick said, shaking his head. "We were going to get to know each other better in my car." Maggie slapped him and screamed, "You're an idiot. I never intended to have sex with you." I shook my head and walked away, looking for my friends. 2 cowboys rushed past me as I approached. I saw 2 women arguing with their husbands, and I looked at Rick. "Did I really miss all the fun?" I asked. Rick laughed. "Doesn't look like it. I'm nodding toward your soon-to-be ex-wife." Before Maggie could say anything, 2 police cars pulled up. Fortunately, the cowboys were leaving in their truck just as the officers arrived. "Any problems here, guys?" one of the officers asked. I stepped forward. "Some guys were harassing our wives. We scared them off." The police officer glanced at me for a moment before asking, "Dust?" "No, we were at home when my wife called us to pick them up. They had drunk too much. You know how it is with housewives, they get carried away with the drinking," I explained. "Yes, I understand," he said. "While they were waiting, they were accosted. We got here just in time, and those idiots left as soon as we arrived. The officer took our IDs and did what cops do. Meanwhile, our wives had calmed down and were sitting together by the cars, while the 4 of us stood closer to the police car. The officer came back out and said, "Okay, get them home safe and sound." He paused and added, "From the looks of them, you might want to consider keeping them on a shorter leash." I nodded, and the officer got into his car and drove off. "Even the police think you look like women of easy virtue," Mark said sarcastically as he left. He got into his SUV and drove away, leaving Jill standing in the parking lot. Damon looked at the group and said, "Ladies, I just ordered a taxi for you. Go home, sort yourselves out, and sober up. We won't be there tonight. In the morning, we'll deal with this betrayal." This made Kelly and Maggie cry again, but Jill's face was filled with hatred. Damon stood his ground. "Off, Jill. This is on you and your desire to relive your good old days. You dragged your girlfriends into this mess, and now you have to pay the piper. Thank God Robin had the sense to leave and warn us," Damon added. "You just sent her home alone so you could get yours. Oh yeah, we all know about the motel party plan. You better come up with a good excuse for it tomorrow during the argument." Jill cowered, but Steve didn't back down. "You'll have to answer for this," he said as he walked back to get his truck. As he arrived, a taxi pulled up, and our wives climbed in. None of us responded to their pleading or attempts at persuasion. Their words weren't going to change anything tonight. "I'm seriously considering divorcing her," I said, shaking my head. "I've seen your wives actually sit in the back seats with their asses hanging out, but mine didn't go that far. Although, I'm sure her intentions weren't good." They nodded in agreement. "My main consideration is the kids," I continued. "I can't be a part-time dad. It would kill me. They're so young. I don't know what to do." The next morning, I woke up to the sound of children running around, excited to be with their friends. Robin was cooking breakfast, bacon and French toast, and I could smell the coffee brewing. I went to the kitchen to get a cup and wake up quickly. When I turned on my phone, I saw I had 5 voicemails, 3 from Maggie, 1 from Mark, and 1 from Dale, her father. I listened to Mark's message first. He was just letting me know that he went to the hotel and everything was fine. Dale's message informed me that Maggie was safe with them. It turns out she hadn't gone home but had walked straight to her parents' house. I could only imagine how that conversation went, given the state she was in. I didn't bother listening to Maggie's voicemails. I tried to read her texts, but they were so incoherent that I just deleted them. Steve and Damon entered the kitchen a few minutes later and sat down at the counter. Robin spoke first. "I'm so sorry, guys. I really tried to reason with them." "Don't worry about it, Robin," I said. "You're the only smart one in this group because you left. We had a guy in the bar watching you all the time." She gasped. "You were spying on us?" "Shut up," Steve shouted. "You're upset that we're worried? Someone was watching over you. What do you think happened last night? We caught them leading men to their cars. Robin, Jill, and Kelly sat in the back seats with them." She stood there in shock, stunned by Steve's outburst. Thank God the kids hadn't heard any of this. "Do you want to stand there all modest, thinking you haven't done anything wrong?" Steve continued. "Did you stop your friends when they were lying on the floor and acting inappropriately? I don't think so. Those men had their hands on them, and those lips weren't their husbands." I pointed to Rick, who had just punched one of the guy's friends. "What do you think about your little plan to ambush us?" I asked. "And now you're shocked that we don't want you going out alone?" Steve slammed his fist on the table. "Last night went exactly as we feared. Marriages are in trouble. Ours too, because of how you supported their actions. Did you really think we wouldn't find out? You fought over going to Damon's place because it was safe, but you had something else planned." Jill began to sob. "Steve, no, please, you have to believe me." "I don't believe anything you say right now," Steve replied, standing up and leaving us all in stunned silence. Robin ran to her bedroom, leaving Damon and me sitting there, wide-eyed in shock. "God, I didn't see that coming," Damon said, his voice low. I shrugged. The morning after everything happened, we finished preparing breakfast, and Robin pulled herself together to help. As we were leaving, I asked her, "Are you going to be okay?" She hugged me quietly. "I hope so. I really hope so." I tried calling Mark to meet him so I could drop off his daughter, but he didn't answer. So I drove to his house. When Jill opened the door, she shouted, "What the hell do you want, idiot?" Little Sammy started crying behind me, so I picked her up, turned around, and walked back to my car. Jill came charging out, screaming for me to give her the baby. She started hitting me in the back. A neighbor saw what was happening and called the police. The police arrived just as she was trying to get Sammy out of my car, making the situation even more intense. Sammy's crying made everything more chaotic. The officers told Jill to move away, but she started screaming that I had kidnapped her child. Naturally, they took her seriously. One officer took Jill to the other side of the car to get her story while the other stayed with me. I explained everything that had happened, from last night to what had happened just now. I told them I was taking Sammy home because Jill had been too drunk to pick her up. A few minutes later, Mark pulled into the driveway. He walked up to me and the officer and asked what was going on. After I filled him in, the officer confirmed Mark's identity and checked my story from the previous night. Mark also listened to my voicemail telling him I was taking Sammy home, which helped calm the situation. The officer relaxed, now convinced I was no threat, and allowed Mark to take Sammy home, despite Jill's screaming objections. In a final outburst of anger, Jill grabbed a brick from their landscaping and threw it at Mark's car as it drove away. Because of this, she was arrested. Mark wisely went to the police station to get a restraining order, and Jill's violent outburst helped make the case stronger. I drove home to see if Maggie had made it back or if she was still with her dad. I figured she was still sleeping off the night's events since my phone hadn't rung. I got the kids inside, set them in front of the TV with snacks, and went into the kitchen to call Dale. "Oh my God, Paul," Dale said when he picked up. "What happened last night?" "Maggie showed up here half-dead drunk and dressed like a prostitute," he said. "She said you kicked her out, and she didn't even do anything. She passed out before I could get anything else out of her, and she's still asleep. We're terribly worried." "I'm sorry, Dale, but she and her friends went out dancing in those outfits," I said, frustrated. "I caught her walking to the car with another man, and she wasn't even wearing underwear." Dale's silence spoke volumes. "Oh my God. Yeah, well, she's right. It never went too far, but that's only because I stopped it. She was about to do some irrational things in that guy's car," I said. "I'm really sorry, Paul," Dale said, his voice filled with concern. "What will happen now?" "I don't know, Dale," I replied. "Can I forgive her for planning to cheat on me? Only thanks to my intervention did that not happen. You know I love you, but she's my child," Dale said. "I'd like to see you try to forgive her. Think about it, for the sake of the children." I paused. "You don't know half the problem with what she did last night. Even the events leading up to it show she planned this and didn't respect our marriage or family. I need time to think." "You're right about the kids, though. They're the most important thing," Dale agreed. "Would you mind if I came by to help you pick up her car from the club?" "Of course, Dale. Come over. Kathy would like to see her grandchildren too." As we drove to the club, I told Dale the whole story. He was shocked but still asked me to forgive her. Just as we were pulling into the parking lot, my phone rang. It was Maggie. I ignored it and Dale frowned. "You can't hide from her, son. You have 2 babies to think about and you need to talk this through. You can't let it fester." "I know," I said. "I'm going to go home and wait for her. Will you and Katie stay with the kids while we talk?" "Certainly. Please listen to her. Maybe you could talk to a priest or counselor to help you get through this." "Of course, Dale, but one step at a time." I sent Maggie a message, asking her to meet me at home at 1 o'clock and answer 4 questions honestly to start a dialogue. 1. Did she plan to find a man for intimacy that evening? 2. Did they plan to go to a motel? 3. Why did she give him her underwear? 4. What was her plan of action in his car? I already knew the answer to some of these, and for the rest, I had already received lies from her the night before. I could always tell when she was lying. Her right eye twitched, almost imperceptibly. I had caught her in lies before, and I was sure I would catch her again. Before Maggie left, she knew I knew about her nervous tics. Dale and Katie, Maggie's parents, had a fairy tale marriage. They were high school sweethearts who married shortly after graduation. When Maggie first introduced me to her parents, I was amazed at how they interacted. They were always touching, always sitting close to each other. If there was only one seat, Dale would stand as close as possible to where Katie was sitting. When I asked for his blessing to marry Maggie, we had a long conversation about maintaining a happy marriage over time. Dale said, "Paul, marriage is never a straight or smooth path. You can drive for miles without turning or pulling over, but eventually you'll hit one. The key is to make sure your car can handle it when that time comes. Your relationship is like that car. It needs maintenance. If you let small problems slide or don't do regular tune-ups and oil changes, your car won't last long. If the road is your marriage," he continued, "then your car is your relationship. You have to work at it all the time. It doesn't just mean remembering anniversaries and birthdays. It means making time to be together, being gentle, caring, and doing the little things, even when they don't seem to matter in the grand scheme of things." If your relationship is properly maintained, you'll have a long, fulfilling marriage. I often relived that conversation and others like it. I thought Maggie and I had a love like theirs. We weren't exactly touchy-feely, but we worked to ensure our marriage was maintained. I had always been confident in our relationship, confident in her fidelity. Until that night, it never crossed my mind that she could betray our marriage. Did I miss the warning signs? Had I neglected the little things that help maintain a healthy relationship? This would require some serious thought. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Maggie returned home, looking terrible. She must have just finished crying, as her eyes were still red and puffy. "Paul, go get yourself in order," I snapped, unable to hide the frustration in my voice. "I don't want to look at you in those clothes." There was no real reason for me to force her to change. Was I just delaying the inevitable? Was I buying myself more time to think? I looked at the TV, realizing I was watching Frozen 2 without even noticing. I was lost in my thoughts. Maggie came down half an hour later, freshly showered and wearing yoga pants and a t-shirt, clothes I knew she looked great in. She'd worn them many times before, and they had often led to more intimate moments. I was half sure she wasn't just dressing for comfort. She wanted me to think of her intimately. "Paul, dear, Wait," I interrupted. "I asked you to have answers to 4 questions ready before we talk. Can you answer them?" She sighed. "Yes," she replied, waiting for me to continue. I watched her closely for any signs of a twitch or nervousness. But then she moved her hair flirtatiously, and I noticed her bite her lip. Damn, I loved her. She made my life difficult, and I didn't think it was intentional. I should have already bent her over the sofa by now, but I allowed her to continue. "I never intended to go to a motel with Jill," she said, her voice steady. "It was her idea. I swear I didn't mean to sleep with that guy. I was just gonna walk into his car and then Uber home. I'm sorry I lied about it last night. I don't know why I said he would give me a ride. I think I just panicked." I didn't respond. I just watched her closely. "Yes, I gave him my underwear," she continued, her voice softer. "I was drunk, and they all encouraged me to do it. I went to the toilet alone and took them off. I didn't let him do anything. He didn't touch me there, I swear. I knew it was true because Rick had been watching her. If anything had happened, he would have seen it. I swear, Paul, I didn't mean to get into his car," she said, her voice breaking. "God, I wish I had stopped myself before I went out. I know you don't believe me, but it's true. Give me your phone," I said, cutting her off. "What for?" she asked, but I didn't answer. I opened her recent calls and saw calls to the other girls. I figured they needed to get their stories straight. Then I saw a number I didn't recognize. "Who's Simon?" I asked, turning to face her. She twitched, but she didn't respond. "Who's Simon, Maggie?" "The guy from the bar," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. He must have inserted his number into my phone while I was on the toilet. I felt my anger rising again. "And you told him you were getting a divorce?" I asked, my voice low. "We just said that to buy us drinks," she explained. "We didn't think they'd approach us if we told them we were married." "You can't spend your own money on booze," I said, my voice tight. "The bank is full of money." "I'm sorry," Maggie said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what else to say. We were stupid. I understand. I screwed up, but I never intended to cheat on you." "Well, all the evidence points to the contrary," I replied coldly. "You had your plans, your appearance. You slapped me and told me I'd be lucky if you ever came home. You told him you were getting a divorce. Jill was trying to throw a party at a motel, and you were heading to his car without any underwear. Your girlfriends sat right in the back seat with their boyfriends. Every bit of it shows me that you planned to deceive me. Maggie cried and ran out of the room. My anger had already subsided, and I was calm. But now I found myself questioning everything. Her actions, her intentions. Had I stopped the situation from going too far? Or had I been too blind to see where things were headed? I couldn't tell whether it was her actions or her intentions that mattered more. I stopped what was actually going to happen, but what could have happened in her drunken state? Was she persuaded to do more than she thought she would? This behavior was a complete shock to me. Maggie had never acted like this before. Sure, she'd become a bit more affectionate after a few glasses of wine, but nothing like what happened that night. I was at a loss, unsure of what to do next. The next day, things felt different. Damon had become a completely different person after what happened. I left the house without checking on Maggie and called Mark, who had returned home with his daughter after getting a restraining order against Jill. He invited me to talk about our problems, and I agreed. Misery loves company, right? I stopped to grab a couple of packs of beer and headed toward Mark's. When he opened the door, I saw that he was upset. Mark was always the cheerful one, but now he looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Sammy's napping. Let's go to the living room, Mark said, carrying a baby monitor. Soft music played from Sammy's room. Have you spoken to Maggie? He asked as we sat down. Yes, she claims she had no intention of getting into that car, but I'm not sure I believe her. Hell, even if I do believe her, I can't say that he couldn't have talked her into it. I really don't know what I'm going to do yet. Mark told me about Jill's arrest and the restraining order. He had an appointment with his lawyer on Tuesday. So this is really it? I asked. Yes, he said, then handed me his phone. Look at this. He showed me a string of messages Jill had sent him after leaving the club. Oh my God, I muttered, scrolling through them. Most of the messages were insults, but one threatened to take Sammy and leave him. The last one, sent at 1 a.m., read, "Get a DNA test." Mark shook his head, looking defeated. She left her phone here this morning. There are tons of messages from other guys exchanging photos. Yeah, we're done. I sent screenshots to my email before she returned with a police escort to collect her clothes and belongings. As far as I'm concerned, she can rot in hell. I hope I can get custody of Sammy. She's mentally unstable. I sympathized with Mark, knowing how difficult it was for him. Sorry about that. I was in the shower when you called. I thought we'd arrive here at the same time, so I didn't call you back. He paused. What about you? What are you going to do? My main priority is the kids, I said, looking down. I don't want to be a part-time dad. At least you have a chance at custody. I don't have anything like that. I have to figure out if I can survive what she did. As much as I want to stay with my kids, I don't want to live with her as roommates. Damn, Mark said, shaking his head. Jill did this to everyone. I'm sure of it. She was the driving force behind that whole night. Maybe you should lean towards forgiveness, though. She never actually cheated. I know, I said, swallowing hard. I just don't want to let her think she can get away with this crap. What will happen the next time I'm not around? This sucks, dude. Yeah, it sucks, Mark agreed. Just then, Sammy woke up, and our conversation about the situation stopped for a while. But that didn't stop me from drinking. Mark stopped after a couple of minutes, but I couldn't stop myself, grabbing more beers as the thoughts circled in my mind. Mark drove me home. Maggie's car was in the driveway when we pulled up. I frowned, the thought of dealing with her again making my stomach churn. As I stumbled out of the car, Sammy giggled and called me a stupid chatterbox. I walked through the front door and immediately smelled something cooking. I closed the door and headed upstairs to my bedroom, wanting to avoid Maggie. But when I came out of the bathroom, Maggie stood there, tears streaming down her face. What happened to us, Paul? I'm so sorry about all of this. I looked at her, but couldn't answer. I don't know, I finally said, but I think you should stay with your parents until we figure this out. She cried harder, her voice cracking. Do you not love me anymore? If I didn't love you, I snapped, your stuff would already be packed and waiting by the door. She recoiled, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. Listen, I'm going to take a few days off. I'll pick up the kids from your parents and take care of them here. I need more time to think about this. I paused. Get them some clothes and let them spend the night with you. I can't do dinner tonight. I made you beef stroganoff. Cooking my favorite dinner won't fix us, I said, cutting her off. I know. I just wanted to do something nice for you. I love you so much, Paul. It kills me that I caused such damage to our marriage. You have to believe me. I never intended to cheat on you. I stood there, feeling numb. I think it's time for you to go. I'll pick up the kids from kindergarten tomorrow if you drop them off there. Okay? I said quietly. Maggie cried harder. I love you so much. Please, let me come home soon. She tried to hug me, but I backed away. She turned, defeated, and left the room. I stood there, wondering if I should stop her, but I couldn't. The next morning, Monday, I decided I would make a decision by Wednesday, one way or another. I figured a long delay wouldn't help anything. After speaking with my boss, I was given a week off. He had been pestering me for a while about using up my vacation time, so he was fine with it. I made an appointment with a lawyer for Wednesday to figure out what my options were if I decided to go the divorce route. I hoped it wouldn't be as bad as my internet research suggested. I also sent a group message to the guys, asking if anyone had taken some time off. Turned out all the guys had at least taken a day off, so I suggested we all meet up. Steve had Robin at his house, so we decided to meet there. Robin could look after any children not in daycare or with their mothers. It was a relief that Steve had calmed down and worked things out with Robin. She didn't act like the other wives did that night. I didn't think she should be punished as severely as the others. Damon had asked Kelly to stay with her parents for a few days, and she agreed. At that time, he still hadn't made any final decisions. Mark was still moving forward with his divorce plan. Jill's complete disrespect was too much to overcome. Nobody blamed him for his decision. He had proof of her infidelity from her phone. As we sat around the kitchen table talking, Damon, Steve, and Mark agreed that I should try to make things work with Maggie. They all felt she hadn't actually done anything, but it was unclear whether she would have followed through if I hadn't stopped her. If I'm honest with myself, I knew I was already leaning toward giving her another chance. I still planned to meet with the lawyer just to be thorough. Damon had another problem. Kelly had gone further than Maggie. She had sat in the back seat with her boyfriend, and while she didn't sleep with him, something was bound to have happened. Damon was just as unsure as I was. If we didn't have children, our wives would already be out the door, but we couldn't make such a quick emotional decision. Families were at stake. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the consequences of divorce would be severe. Our wives might have to get jobs, their alimony and child support payments would be huge, and we'd have to pay extra for housing. The wives would almost certainly get primary custody. As bad as I felt about it, Damon felt worse. Kelly had gone further than Maggie, and he regretted stopping her that night. He wished he had let her complete all the actions she intended to take with the guy, so he would have a better idea of her true intentions. But what man wouldn't stop his wife in such a situation? I picked up the kids from daycare. They were unusually talkative, and it improved my mood as the day wore on. I thought less about Maggie and more about the kids. Around dinner time, Dale called. After some small talk, he said, "Paul, how about we bring over a couple of pizzas and see if we can help you come to a decision? Dale, you and Katie can come, but I'm not going to see her talk to Maggie today. Paul, you can't hide from her. I'm not hiding. I just need time to think about my options and what I'm going to do. If you want to come and take her side, I have no problem talking to you, but not with Maggie. Okay, Paul. See you in an hour. If I didn't like Maggie's parents so much, I would have told him to get lost. Since I was already leaning toward giving her a second chance, I decided it wouldn't hurt to talk to them. We ate pizza and talked with the kids until bedtime. After the children were settled and had their stories read to them, it was time for some serious conversation. Katie's presence helped, and I was grateful for that. Kathy began the discussion quietly. Paul, where are you now? Is there a chance for you two to stay together? There's always a chance, I replied, my voice strained. My problem is balancing what I know, what I've seen, and what she's claiming. She says nothing happened with this guy, but she told him she was in the process of getting a divorce.
Katie gasped.
She told him that? But why? I sighed, trying to hold it together. She said it was so he could buy her a drink. But we don't suffer due to lack of money. There's no need for men to buy her drinks. She also gave him her underwear. And yes, she followed him to his car, drunk and without underwear. Oh my God! Her mother whispered, horrified. Dale lowered his head, clearly affected. I had told Dale the whole story earlier, and I suppose he hadn't told her everything. I didn't blame him. It was enough that he knew what had happened. I don't know what to say to this, Katie said, barely audibly. I know this sucks, I muttered, my anger resurfacing. It's because she dared to do it and was too drunk to make the right decision. Who asks to take off her underwear in a bar unless she's trying to get into someone's pants? And who gives it to him if she wasn't going to let him sleep with her? A wife and mother shouldn't behave like this. What am I supposed to do with all of this? On top of that, it was all planned. They could have just gone to Damon's bar, and we knew they'd be safe. But they refused and didn't want us to spy on them. Does this seem like it was going to be an innocent night? Not for me. Thank God you followed them, Dale added. Yes, Mark and Jill are getting divorced, I continued. And Damon and Kelly probably too. That would definitely be the case if Damon didn't have kids to think about. The only safe couple out of all of us is Steve and Robin, and that's because she left when things started crossing boundaries. Even their marriage is on the rocks because Stevie hated that Robin didn't try to stop the promiscuous behavior. What about counseling? Dale asked. Oh, that has to happen, at least if I decide to give her a chance, I said, feeling defeated. There's no doubt about it. What made her make this terrible decision? Why did she go out with her friends knowing Jill was planning on picking up men? Maggie should have been the voice of reason, but instead, she encouraged it. They both nodded in agreement. I noticed they were holding hands tightly, like they were afraid to let go. God, I wish Maggie loved me the way they love each other, I thought. Dale spoke again. What's next, Paul? I'm meeting with a lawyer on Wednesday, I replied, deciding I needed to make a decision. I gave myself a timeline to figure this out. We really hope it doesn't come to that, son, Dale said, looking concerned. We hate to see the family torn apart over this. Don't forget we're collateral damage in your decision. We love you like a son. I know, I said, my voice shaking. I love you too. I'm sorry you have to go through this. There was nothing more to say after that. They said their goodbyes, and I headed for the bottle of whiskey on the counter. Later that evening, there was a knock on my door. It was Dale delivering a letter written by Maggie. I didn't know why she felt the need to write me a letter. After all, I would have answered her call, but I just didn't want to be around her. The letter didn't say anything I hadn't already heard. It felt like she just wanted to tell me she loved me over and over again, as if somehow it would be more believable in writing. I had met with the lawyer earlier that day, just to see how bad things would be if we went the divorce route. No evidence of adultery. Stay-at-home mom. child support, joint custody. If the kids went to college, I'd be on the hook for child support for 17 years. The lawyer actually looked me in the eyes and said, "Find a way to get past this. Nothing really happened, and it's cheaper to keep her." I decided I would ask Maggie to come home. I didn't know how things were supposed to work or what would happen next, but I knew that if we were going to fix things, living apart wasn't going to help. I wrote to her, "You can return home, but you must answer one question. How can I trust you again?" I hoped she could give me an answer because, right now, I couldn't see how I could trust her in the future. When I put the kids to bed that night, I still had no answer. They were very upset that she wasn't home, and I didn't have a convincing explanation for them. I read them a story, but they cried until they fell asleep. My anger only grew as the night went on, so I called her parents' landline. No reply. I called her cell phone, but no answer. I called Dale's cell phone, nothing. I sent SMS messages to all 3 numbers, every 15 minutes for an hour. It was almost 10 o'clock and I began to worry. I called Robin and asked her to come watch the kids so I could drive over and see what was going on. Robin pulled into my driveway, and I met her at the door. "Anything else, Paul?" she asked. "No, thank you for coming so quickly. I'll let you know what happens as soon as I can." The drive to Maggie's parents' house took only 10 minutes, but it was quiet. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Maggie's car, but no one answered the doorbell. I used the spare key to enter. Inside, I didn't see anything unusual and Dale's car was gone. I searched around some more but still couldn't find anything. I called Dale's cell phone again, and to my surprise, I heard it ringing in their bedroom. They must have left in a hurry without their phones. I checked the kitchen, and Maggie's phone was ringing, still unanswered. I called again, but it kept ringing, unanswered, from another room. Then, my heart sank as I entered the bathroom. On the sink, there was an empty bottle of sleeping pills. Panic surged through me as I fell to my knees, the realization hitting me hard. Why hadn't they called me? Why hadn't they reached out for help? Gathering my courage, I rushed to my car. The hospital wasn't far, just a couple of miles away. I drove like a man possessed, my hands gripping the wheel tightly. I parked in the emergency room drop-off lane, leaving my car running, and ran into the hospital. "I need to find my wife, Maggie, and her parents," I said, breathless, to the lady behind the counter. They had Maggie in the emergency room, but they wouldn't give me any details on her condition yet. I prayed silently, desperately hoping she was still alive. They let me in, and I hurried through the maze of corridors. I found her in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, her breathing steady. Katie wasn't there. I sat beside her, holding her arm, crying quietly. A few minutes later, a nurse entered. "Are you related to her?" she asked. "She's my wife. Will she be okay?" "Yes. She had her stomach pumped. She'll sleep a little, but now all her functions are normal. They got her here just in time. Thank God. I'm glad we found her." Her parents were furious when they found out they hadn't called me, hadn't thought to grab their phones. "Soon," the nurse continued, "she'll be transferred to a ward for the night. You'll need to fill out some forms for insurance and all that." "Okay. Thank you," I muttered, still in shock. Just then, my phone rang. It was Robin. "Paul, she's in the emergency room. You must be here." "I'm here with her." "How do you know?" I asked, bewildered. "Dale says he couldn't call you. I found the empty pill bottle and their phones at the house, and I feared the worst. I rushed here." "Paul, this is Dale," he said, his voice filled with regret. "When we found her, we panicked. We rushed to her without thinking about the phones. All our numbers are in those damn things, we don't even try to remember them anymore. Katie was in such a bad way. I couldn't leave her, not until I knew Maggie would be okay." Once Kathy calmed down, I rushed here to pick you up. I listened quietly, feeling a wave of emotion. Katie wasn't in the room at that moment, and Dale added, "She went to the chapel. I'm on my way back now. I'll see you soon." "Robin, can you stay a little longer?" I asked, feeling drained. "Please." "Certainly. I'll stay tonight. Don't worry about anything," she replied. "I'll keep you informed." I thanked her, and when Maggie's condition seemed stable for now, I decided to check on Katie. I needed answers, and I wanted to make sure she was okay. I found her in the chapel, praying. As soon as she saw me, she rushed into my arms. "Oh, Paul," she cried. I was so scared. I couldn't believe she took the pills. "Why did she do this?" "We don't know," Katie whispered, shaking her head. "She was in her room all day. After dinner, I went to invite her to tea, like we do every evening, but she was slumped on the bed. She barely woke up, but said something about a stupid mistake with pills. It didn't take long to realize what had happened. Dale carried her to the car and we brought her here. We didn't even think about taking our phones. I didn't even grab my purse. "I saw it," I said quietly, glancing down. "I came to your house when no one answered. I couldn't understand why she didn't call me after I told her to come home." "Did you tell her to come home?" Katie asked, her eyes full of concern. "Yes," I nodded. "We still have a lot to talk about, but being apart isn't going to help." "But why would she do this?" Katie's presence helped calm me, and I was grateful for that. After the children were settled and tucked in, Kathy started the conversation. "Paul, where are you now? Is there a chance for you two to stay together?" she asked. "There's always a chance," I replied, my voice tight. "But my problem is balancing what I know and what Maggie's claiming. She says nothing happened with this guy, but she told him she was in the process of getting a divorce."
Katie gasped.
"She told him that? But why?" I took a deep breath. "She said it was so he would buy her a drink. But we don't lack for money. There's no reason for her to need men buying drinks for her. She also gave him her underwear, and she followed him to his car, drunk and without underwear." "Oh my God," Kathy whispered in horror. Dale lowered his head, clearly troubled. I told him the whole story, but I hadn't expected Kathy to hear it all. "I don't know what to say to this," Katie said softly. "I know this sucks," I muttered. "But she dared to do this and was too drunk to make the right decision. Who asks to take off their underwear in a bar unless they're trying to get into someone's pants? And who gives it to him if they weren't going to let him sleep with them?" Katie was speechless, and Dale was visibly upset. "A wife and mother shouldn't behave like this. What do I do with all of this?" It was all planned in advance. They refused to go to Damon's bar where they'd be safe. "Does this sound like it was going to be an innocent night to you?" "Thank God you followed them," Dale added. "Yes, Mark and Jill are getting divorced. Damon and Kelly are probably headed in the same direction," I said. "The only safe couple right now is Steve and Robin, and that's because Robin left when things started crossing boundaries. Even their marriage is on the rocks. I'm not sure what to make of all of this." Dale and Katie nodded, sharing a look. "What do you think about counseling?" Dale asked. "It's essential," I replied. "If I decide to give her a chance, counseling is non-negotiable." "But why did she make this terrible decision? Why go out knowing that Jill was planning to pick up men? Maggie should have been the voice of reason, not part of the problem." They agreed, their fingers intertwined tightly. I saw how much they supported each other. "I wish Maggie loved me the way you two love each other," I thought. "What's next, Paul?" Dale asked, breaking my thoughts. "I'm meeting with a lawyer on Wednesday," I said. "I've given myself a timeline to make a decision. I just can't keep going in circles." "We hope it doesn't come to that," Dale said quietly. We don't want to see our family torn apart over this. But remember, we're collateral damage in your decision. We love you like a son. I know, I said, my voice breaking. I love you too. I'm sorry you're having to go through all this. There was nothing more to say. They said their goodbyes and I headed to the whiskey bottle. That evening, there was a knock at my door. It was Dale delivering a letter from Maggie. I didn't know why she felt the need to write me a letter. I would have answered her call. I just didn't want to be around her. The letter didn't offer anything new. It was filled with her declarations of love, but it only made her words feel less sincere. The next day, I met with the lawyer just to understand my options. If we went the divorce route, there was no evidence of adultery. She was a stay-at-home mom. Joint custody was likely, but I'd be on the hook for child support for 17 years if the kids went to college. The lawyer told me straight up, find a way to get past this. Nothing really happened, and it's cheaper to keep her. I decided I would ask Maggie to come home. I didn't know how we could move forward, but if we were going to fix things, living apart wouldn't help. I wrote her a message. You can return home, but you must answer one question. How can I trust you again? That night, the kids were upset she wasn't home, and I didn't have a good explanation for them. I read them a story, but they cried until they fell asleep. I grew angrier with every passing minute. I tried calling her parents' landline, then her cell, then Dale's cell. No answer. I called every number every 15 minutes for an hour. It was almost 10 o'clock, and panic started creeping in. I called Robin and asked her to watch the kids so I could go over and see what was going on. When I arrived at the hospital, I rushed inside, desperate to find out what was going on. Maggie was still unconscious, but her parents and I were able to talk quietly while we waited for the doctors to give us updates. Katie, exhausted and worried, was praying in the chapel. When she saw me, she rushed into my arms. "Oh, Paul," she cried. "I was so scared. Why did she take the pills?" "We don't know," I said gently. "She was in her room all day. After dinner, I went to invite her to tea like we always do, but she was slumped on the bed. When she barely woke up, she said something about a stupid mistake with pills. We didn't think about taking our phones," Katie said quietly. "We were just focused on getting her here. We didn't realize you didn't know." I nodded, trying to process everything. It didn't make sense. Why would Maggie do this? "I told her to come home," I said, my voice shaking. "But why would she do this?" Katie's face softened with understanding. "I don't know, Paul. It doesn't make sense. But she needs you now more than ever." Jill's words hit me like a slap. "You better hope I don't see you there," she snarled as Kelly pulled her away, trying to calm her down. "You don't need this now," Kelly said, urging Jill away from me. "Burn in hell, Paul," Jill spat, her voice full of venom as they walked toward the stairwell. I couldn't believe she'd show up here, acting as if nothing had happened. It was like the whole night never mattered to her. I picked up the kids and drove them home before taking them to the hospital. I saw Maggie's parents in the waiting room. They told me she was seeing the doctor, so we had to wait. We all assumed it was part of a mental health assessment. I told the kids their mom was sick but didn't elaborate. They didn't ask many questions, and I was grateful. If they asked, we decided we'd tell them she had a lot of stomach pain. It was a silly excuse, but we hoped they'd buy it. At 5 and 4, who knew what they'd believe? A doctor came to speak with me privately. He led me into a small office and asked directly, "Are you taking her back?" "Right now, my plan is the same as before. Bring her home," I said, my voice steady. "We can't fix our marriage if she's not here." He nodded as if he understood. "This situation is of utmost importance. You need to get it in order before you make any decisions." I agreed. "You should be together. But if you convince her that your marriage is okay and then it doesn't work out, her depression may worsen. I strongly encourage you both to start seeing therapists, individually and together. Can she come home? I asked. The doctor nodded. She can be discharged today. She'll have a prescription for antidepressants and a referral for therapy. I recommend watching some films together, something light, to help ease her into therapy. Thank you, I said, feeling a little lighter, though the weight of the situation still pressed down on me. We brought Maggie home, surprising her with a large welcome home banner that the kids and I had made before going to the hospital. Dale and Katie arrived shortly after, bringing her things from the hospital. We had dinner together, and the kids were thrilled to have their mom back. It had only been a week, but it felt like an eternity. After the kids went to bed and her parents left, I was cleaning up the kitchen when Maggie came up behind me and hugged me. I didn't hear her crying, but my shirt was soon wet with her tears. "I love you so much, Paul," she whispered. "Please tell me you still love me." I turned and pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly. "I never stopped loving you," I said softly. "But I can't come to terms with what you did to me, what you did to our marriage. You didn't behave like a wife. Everything was planned. You knew what Jill was going to do and you supported it. You should have stopped her, not joined her." Maggie sobbed, her words breaking my heart. "You have to believe me. I never intended to cheat on you, never meant to break our vows." I took a deep breath, my voice heavy with emotion. "We have a fundamental difference in how a wife and mother should behave. You let Jill convince you to go out, to be reckless. She even helped you choose a dress. That's hard for me to understand." Maggie was quiet, her tears streaming down her face. She didn't respond for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was shaky. "Did you know Jill cheated on Mark?" I asked, my voice low. Maggie looked up at me, surprised. "No," she whispered. I nodded.
¿Y had suspicions?
She confirmed it that night at the bar. "You know, she went crazy because of Mark. He had to get a restraining order against her. I was there when she started screaming at me, when she attacked Mark's car and threw a brick at it." Maggie seemed stunned. "I didn't know," she murmured, her eyes wide with disbelief. "She's a monster," I said harshly. "She needs help, and she was the cause of all our problems. I didn't even let her see you at the hospital." Maggie's face softened, but I could still see the guilt in her eyes. "I know she called me, and I appreciate you not letting her see me. I didn't want to be around her either," I said, my anger bubbling to the surface. "I can't believe she convinced Kelly to go to the motel with her." Maggie's face dropped, and I saw the weight of it all crash over her. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know." She sighed deeply, and her voice was soft but steady. "I'm not going to lie. We were going to meet up with the guys and then rent a room. That's why I wasn't with Jill. I was with my boyfriend. But I wasn't going to go through with it, and I certainly wasn't going to a motel." I nodded, absorbing the truth of her words. "You know I have to tell Damon." "I know," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "She won't admit to anything, and she's on thin ice. I'm afraid their marriage won't survive." "We'll see," I replied. "But it depends on them. We have our own issues to deal with." Later, I was getting ready for bed when she entered the room. "Paul," she said hesitantly, "we can sleep together, right?" "Yes," I replied. "You can sleep in our bed." But then I hesitated. "I'm not sure I'm ready for intimacy yet." She nodded, understanding, but then said, "I just want to be close to you. I've missed you so much." I agreed silently, and we lay down together, each of us carrying the weight of the night's events. The next morning, I woke up to her gentle caresses, but the thoughts from that night quickly filled my mind. I sat up abruptly, lost in my own thoughts. "Let me do this for you," she whispered, pulling me back down. "Let me show you how much I love you." I sighed deeply and pulled her into my arms. "I love you," I murmured. "I know you love me, but you put yourself before your family and didn't act like you loved me. We still have a lot of work to do." It took several months, sometimes tearful consultations, but we eventually got back to where we were before. I don't see her ever planning on doing something like that again. The first time she thought she'd lost me, it nearly broke her. I can't imagine it happening again. Through her individual therapy sessions, she realized she had been overly reliant on Jill's influence. Since then, she cut all contact with Jill completely, and she feels good about it. Mark and Jill divorced. She lost primary custody of the kids, though she was granted free visitation. Her parents forced her to undergo therapy after Mark told them everything that happened, including what she had done to destroy her family. Her wealthy father even threatened to abandon her, but I hope she can recover. Damon and Kelly survived their struggles. Damon couldn't be separated from his little girls, and while I don't think he's happy, he puts on a good face. He keeps Kelly on a tight leash. She, too, cut off all contact with Jill after months of begging from Damon. I stopped complaining about Kelly and Maggie being friends. I feel for Damon, and I can't help but think he might leave once the girls are old enough. Steve and Robin, of course, stayed together. It was the easier route since she hadn't done anything with other men. She refuses to go out without Steve, and while I think that's a bit over the top, it works for them. That's their marriage. The ladies still have their club, and they invited another housewife, Hannah Davis, who's new to the area. She fits in well with the group, though her husband Ryan doesn't play golf, smoke cigars, or drink craft beer. But we're working on him. He's an incredible darts player and fits in perfectly with our team. Life goes on. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.